Okay, so today we are doing the still life. So the first thing you need to do is you are going to create a grid. So we're going to divide the space in half. To be more accurate, we're going to divide it into 8 boxes. So the grid helps you with composition and placing objects on the surface. So the first object we're going to put onto the surface is a circle. Next, we are going to put a little bit of a larger circle. Then we are going to place an egg type shape down here towards the bottom. After that, we are going to do a cylinder going across the page. So there's the end of that part, and then you're going to have the other end down here. And I'm just going to draw a line. And connect both of the ends. Okay, then I'm going to place another circle back here, but I'm just going to do half a circle. After that, I'm going to draw a cone. So a cone is basically just a three-dimensional triangle. And I'm going to draw a little oval for the bottom of it. After that, there's a little bit of a bench here in the back that I'm going to draw. Okay, now that I have all my objects, and then the edge of the table here. Now that I have all my objects in place, I'm going to start shading. So I'm going to imagine a little lamp over here shining on all the objects. So the first thing you want to shade is the core, which is the center of the object. It's also going to be the darkest part of the object. So I'm going to go around to all the objects and I'm going to shade in their core, which means just the middle of the object, and I'm going to shade it. And I'm going to shade the background. I want to separate the background from the foreground, so that's all going to be shaded in. And now I'm going to blend that all together. You can use a blending stump or you can use a Q-tip, either one, and then blend it all together. As we get towards the light, it's going to be a little bit lighter. So we're going to lighten up. Do the same thing to the other spheres. We're going to go around and do that with all the objects. Okay, so the one thing we didn't do was the cast shadows. So each object is going to cast a shadow. So that is the next thing I'm going to draw. So imagine the light is coming from this direction, and it's going to cast a shadow. You have a larger sphere here, which is going to cast a pretty big shadow. And then you also have the egg here, which is going to cast a shadow like that. So you also have the cone here, and you have the cylinder. They're both going to cast shadows. So your cast shadows should look like that. Okay, now shadows are shades, so I'm going to go ahead and shade that in pretty dark. And I'm going to blend that together. Okay, so you have some edges here, and it's a little bit different than a round object. What it does is it pretty much abruptly stops and becomes dark. So I have that here. I also have this wooden seat that I put in the background that's going to do that. So what it does is, especially if you see this, this is more like a board. So because it's more of like a square instead of a cylinder, it's just going to abruptly get dark. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that in because the light's not really reaching it. So it's going to get pretty dark. And again here. And go ahead and blend that in so you can see the separation. Make this a little bit darker so you can see it separate from the background. Okay, and then also here on the cylinder, since this is a cylinder, this is going to be the bottom of it, which is going to be a sharp, abrupt edge. So I'm going to shade that in pretty dark because the light's really not getting to it. And then I'm going to blend that in. Okay, the surface itself shouldn't be a tint because highlights are only a small area. So I'm going to go ahead and just take my blending stump and I'm just going to shade it in a little bit, just lightly. You don't need any extra graphite or lead. And then the same thing with the stool that I have in the background. Go ahead and shade that in. Okay. Now I'm going to go back in and make sure my highlights are bright enough. You have a hard eraser, which if the lines are dark, you can use a hard eraser. Or you have this, which is called a kneaded eraser. You pull it apart, which is the kneading process, which is why it's called kneaded. So I'm going to go ahead and just use my kneaded eraser, and it just picks up the graphite just like that. It's kind of a little cool tool. You can really draw with it. Just going to go back over my cylinder and lighten it up because the light's hitting it on top. And you can dab with it too, and it will give like a gradual change in value. Like that. Now this is pretty close to the light source, so I'm going to lighten this up. You can see the light hitting the edge of the object again. And then if you want it to change in value, you can dab with the kneaded eraser. Like that. And that's it.
Ms. Coco, please call extension 400. Coco,